before.
Too late. We're live.
We're live now.
I don't know. Yeah, are we live? We're good?
All
right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. I'm David Boop. I will be your de facto master of ceremonies for this, the finale of our month-long Kickstarter for the Green Hornet and Cato Detroit Noir City. Of course, a play on Detroit Rock City that Joe Gentile, the owner and operator of Moonstone Books, came up with. Because he also teaches at the School of Rock. So, you know, he loves rock and roll, as I'm sure we all do. So here we are, 1 hour to go. And we have defied a lot of expectations. We are almost to our third stretch goal. We are just less than how much, Frank, right now?
It's $165.
$165 to unlock Timothy Zahn's bonus story. I thought we were unlocking at 20, so I'm like, oh, we unlocked it. And then I realized, you know, I haven't gotten any posts or notices about it being unlocked. So, and then I looked and it's like, oh, 21,000, you know, blackjack, right? Oh, we should make sure he puts blackjack in the story somewhere. So 21,000. Obviously, some of the authors are probably busy watching the Oscars pre-show. I know Kevin J. Anderson probably is, because I'm sure Dune is up for something, or you know, if not, you know, he's really big in Mr. Hollywood now. So
I think it's up for Best Picture. Honestly,
is Dune 2 up for Best Picture?
I think so.
He could actually be in Hollywood. No, was that the year before?
I don't think. I know the director is not up for it. That's for sure.
Right.
They snubbed him completely.
Yeah. Which is a shame because he's a hell of a director.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're talking prose, not film, though we probably will mention some films and TV series along the way.
It is.
Yeah, in this hour.
It is. Dune 2 is up for Best Picture.
Yeah, so we definitely won't be seeing Kevin. Kim, since you're his Padawan, did you hear whether or not he is in L.A., Hollywood for the festivities, or just sitting in his castle with Rebecca?
He's probably in his castle with Rebecca. I haven't heard anything about him going to L.A.
Okay, all right. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed for him, right? Because that's a big thing, being involved with the Dune films, as well as the Dune TV series, Prophecy, which was based on him and Brian's stories. So let's keep our fingers crossed that those continue to be successful. So let's talk a little bit about Green Hornet, and we're just going to go around kind of like we did before, and just introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your writing, and why being invited to Green Hornet anthology meant so much to you. And we'll start with Kim.
All right, I'm Kim May. I write everything.
Yes, you do.
I do. Sci-fi, fantasy, horror, weird westerns, media tie-ins. I do it all.
Thriller. We just were talking about thrillers before we started.
I do thrillers. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, but as for being invited into this project, I've been a fan of Bruce Lee's work for a long time. And so getting to write a story with a character that he made famous, it's a huge honor.
Very cool. Keith R.A. DiCandido.
Hey, you pronounced it right.
Yes. I've actually been deliberately mispronouncing just in case. You know, I'm covering for myself here now. So,
right.
Yeah. Or as I called you in your rap sheet, DeCandyman. So you've never
heard that joke since grammar school. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, you know, Boop, right? Like I have much respect for names like that. So, but tell us a little bit about your writing. Speaking of media tie-ins and so forth.
Well, like Kim, I write pretty much everything. The only thing I don't really write is romance, at least not yet. But I do science fiction, fantasy, horror, mystery, thriller, superhero stories, dirty limericks, whatever. I
can imagine, I can understand why you don't write romance, because how could you write anything that comes close to what you have with your wife, who's sitting right next to you?
Right. Who's right here. Say hi, Ren.
Hi, Ren. She's amazing.
Yes. I write all sorts of stuff, and I've written in somewhere between 30 and 40 different licensed universes. But I hadn't written for the Green Hornet and Kato up until this project, so I was thrilled to come to do it. I came to the Green Hornet through the Batman TV show, which is probably how a lot of us did. Specifically from the guest appearance that they made in the two-parter with Roger C. Carmel, and that led me to watch the show. And of course, I grew up in the 70s, so when Bruce Lee was all the rage. And I'm now a martial artist. I've been practicing karate for 20 years. I'm a 4th degree black belt, and that experience also played a role in the story that I wrote. It dealt with the martial arts and its proliferation that started in the late 60s, at least due in part to Bruce Lee's popularity, and it had and also what was going on in Chinatown in Detroit at the time, which was not my intention when I first started the story. But I started doing a little research, and I realized that Detroit's Chinatown went through a lot of the same things that my hometown of New York went through when the interstates were built. Right. Entire neighborhoods were like bisected or raised by the construction of the interstate highway system, and that really badly affected Chinatown in Detroit. So I worked with that a little bit too.
It's interesting because the freeways don't happen as much here in Denver, but they did exactly that same thing with the light rail. They put a light rail in and just wiped out entire neighborhoods to put that in. And while, obviously an L line, a light rail, stuff like that is very important for some people, but the loss of those neighborhoods, that's history, and so, yeah, I feel that. So very good. Mr. Haspil, Mike, how you doing over there? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Mike Haspil. I write science fiction, fantasy, mostly urban fantasy. Came into the Green Hornet basically because I wanted to. I got into the character just like Keith did, through his guest spot, and it was just like, well, who is this guy? And it's really cool, and of course Bruce Lee as well. A huge influence and everything like that, and I was excited to write for the anthology, to try my hand at like some pulp, some like, hey, this is back when justice is served with a right hook, what I mean? Yeah. It's like, so I thought that was
to the neck. Cool. Boom.
That's right. Yeah.
So and of course, Mike's got my favorite hairdo. Stunning, man. You look great. So here we are. We are, all authors in this anthology, this 90th anniversary anthology. 89 years ago in January was when the Green Hornet debuted on the radio. And this 90th anniversary anthology is taking a lot of that history and bringing it to a new audience. I was thinking about what both of you guys were saying about the two-parter, as it were, with the Green Hornet. And I can't actually remember it, having seen it as on the reruns, right? And I have to wonder if maybe because the second half of that episode is in the Green Hornet, whether or not in syndication they dropped that first half because you couldn't see the second half.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a crossover. It wasn't a crossover. It was just a 2-part episode of Batman.
Okay, because it's on my Green Hornet DVD box set. So
I'm not surprised, but
they must have put both episodes in there, and I just naturally thought it was a crossover.
It wasn't like those, like the Homicide Law and Order crossovers they used to do, where start on one and end on the other, or the $6 Million Man Bionic Woman crossovers they used to do.
Yeah.
No, this was just a 2-part episode of Batman that happened to have the Green Hornet and Kato in it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Batman, life on the streets.
Kato versus Robin. He got to hold back.
He did impressive work. Some of his I think probably his most impressive work, making Robin look really good. You know,
Yeah.
He did some work there.
Yeah,
Well,
because in the
things
episode,
you
Robin
learn-
holds his own.
Yeah, one of the things you learn when you're training in the martial arts is that when you're sparring with somebody, you fight at the level of the weaker of the two fighters. So that's obviously what Bruce Lee was doing when he was paired up with Burt Ward.
Right. Yeah. No, and
one of my favorite bits of trivia about
Okay.
what Bruce Lee went through, the cameras weren't good enough to capture him properly. He moved too fast for the cameras of 1966. A lot of the moves you couldn't really appreciate because he was moving so damn fast that they couldn't pick it up.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
Imagine what he could do with like the Matrix kind of stuff these days, right? Like, where you could like capture every subtle move that he does, slowing it down and speeding it up and all of that, we also just celebrated or, honored the 50 years of his passing just a couple of years ago. We had originally tried to time this for that, but life. But yeah, both Enter the Dragon and his passing celebrated their 50th anniversary. It's amazing how many things are coming up like 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and now Green Hornet's coming up on that 90. That's, there's so many things that become part of our social or media zeitgeist, as it were. But while people do think of Bruce Lee and they do think of Kato, I think in some ways Bruce Lee's legacy has overshadowed a little bit of what Van Williams did in that show, which was amazing work as well. Why don't you guys, whoever wants to take it, let's talk a little bit about Britt Reed, because we talk about Bruce Lee and Kato a lot. But what about Britt Reed and Van Williams? Who wants to jump in?
Well, what I liked about him is he embodied the suaveness, the same kind of suaveness that you see with like the early Bond films, right? And he's got all the gadgets and everything like that, but nothing really ever flusters either Britt or Van, right? It's like you never see them really at like flustered. You never see them bothered. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, this guy brought a gun. That's a minor inconvenience. You know what I mean? Like, but the other thing I like about it too is that even though it is pulp, and there's a lot of fisticuffs and Bruce Lee and stuff like that. That's never their first go-to. In a sense, it's almost like some other shows that came later, like The Equalizer, where, look, you're a bad guy, but I'm going to give you one last chance to not be a bad guy. Right. And if you comply, then that's it. It's over. But if you don't, there's going to be serious consequences.
Well, and it's interesting because when he's in the Green Hornet guise, it is almost like that idea of the prison yard. You find the biggest dog and you become their friends, right? And so forth. And when he's playing the Green Hornet, he's playing this crime lord, master, sort of guy, the baddest in the block, and everybody else thinks they're bad until he shows up and he basically says, I'm badder than you, right? So I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do, right? But, everybody thinks that they're going to be tougher than him. And then, of course, pays the price. Kim, what did you think of the duality or triality of Van Williams' portrayal of Britt, Green Hornet, the good guy, and Green Hornet, the bad guy.
Well, I mean, Britt himself is an interesting character because in any other storyline, they would have just said, yeah, he's just this rich guy who owns this newspaper and kind of sort of runs it. But no, but Britt was very hands-on and very involved and stayed informed of what was going on in the city, which then helped him be more effective as the Hornet because he knew what was going on and who was involved in all of the crime issues the city was having. And so, and it kind of, that willingness to get his hands dirty made him more villainous and more interesting as the Hornet, because it would be just easy to let Kato go and do all the fighting. But no, he was right in there throwing punches right alongside him.
Did we lose you, Keith, or did you just kill your video so you could stay online a little bit longer?
I just killed my video. We're having technical issues.
Oh, no problem. We're glad you're still with us. Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, you look at the Green Hornet's origin story, and Britt Reed's dad went to jail for a crime he didn't commit, you know, framed by the mob, as it were. And so, and then died in jail, right? Which is how he inherits the newspaper and his dad's fortunes. And then when we get to the TV series, of course, not only does he own a newspaper, but he owns a television studio as well, and so forth. And he often, you know, chose things that were near and dear to his heart, right? You know, it wasn't just the mob and so forth. He had a very big a very big heart for social issues. And that's something that every one of our stories kind of touch on, is the idea that in that era of the 60s, especially leading into the 70s, there's a lot of things going on in Detroit, as there were in a lot of major cities. Issues like, you know, civil rights and drug use and so forth. And I think that's also what makes him a fascinating character, because he has to say, you know, to these criminals, you know, oh, I'm the biggest drug lord in town, when, you know, he's not moving drugs at all. And, you know, really any of these crooks that did any sort of research would probably figure that out pretty quickly. It's like, you know, well, who's distributing his drugs? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? And a lot of times he had covers for that. But that's something the prose allows the TV series didn't have a chance to, is exploring some of these dynamics of how does Britt run a criminal empire that makes it look like it's got control over part of the city. Yeah, criminal empire, when it's two guys, right? So, Keith, while we still have you, talk a little bit about that dynamic of how do you be a crime lord, run a whole organization when you don't actually have one?
Well, you don't. You bluff the crap out of people. I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's 1967. It's not like they could look them up on Google, you know. And even so, you know, the whole point of the exercise is that it's all criminal activity and it's all underground to some degree or other, and everything's based on, you know, rumor and reputation. And especially in that era, you know, in a pre-electronic age era, as it were, it would be fairly easy to bluff your way through that stuff. You know, you might eventually, you know, a criminal who actually really digs into it might discover, hey, wait a minute, where's his infrastructure? But most aren't going to bother doing that. Right. They're just going to take their word for it. You know, it's a very audacious bluff, and there, you know, it could be an interesting story to have some criminal go, you know, actually dig into it and call him on it.
In our anthology, we come close to that a couple of times.
Yeah.
So
but that's part of the challenge of, you know, I mean, every episode of the show opened with another challenge for the Green Hornet. That's his biggest challenge, is pulling this con on the entire freaking city. that he is a dangerous criminal when he in fact commits no criminal acts whatsoever. Although it's funny, the TV show actually helped in that regard. There were a couple of cases where he was framed for crimes, which enabled him to sort of garnish the reputation a little bit. Right.
One of the things, and we've talked about Cato, and we've talked about, using the media to his advantage, but let's talk about tech. And Mike's a tech guy. He loves his tech. So let's talk about some of the Green Hornet's tech. Mike, looking at the his big 3 pieces of arsenal, right? The Black Beauty, the Hornet Sting, and the Hornet Gun. Let's explore those a little bit for a second. All right. Now, my favorite part of the Black Beauty was basically the drone that he has, the Hornet scanner, right?
Yeah.
What the hell? A drone in the 60s? Come on.
Yeah, they were way ahead of their time on that, and it comes out of the back of the Black Beauty, and he can pilot it around using a television camera that's in the back seat. I mean, it's way, way ahead of its time. I'm wondering if that wasn't I'm wondering if that was like a storytelling tactic for the TV show rather than something they initially come up with. You know what I mean? I think it's like, hey, we need to have him be able to do recon, and we have some B-roll helicopter footage, so let's invent this drone thing. So we can show him doing that. And I love the whole Black Beauty thing, because it's like, I don't know if you remember that 80s video game. I think it was called Spy Master or something like that.
Spy Hunter.
Spy Hunter, that's right.
Yeah, with the car with the missiles, yes.
And it's basically that car. Like, it has the oil slicks, it has caltrops, it has 007 could do a lot worse than driving the Black Beauty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really, really an awesome car. It's bulletproof. It's got missiles that come out of the front. It's got a mortar, that he can shoot out of the top. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I just thought of something for the previous question. One of the things I think that helped him get away with stuff, at least in the TV show, was he was never asking to take their entire operation. He was always asking for a cut. Right. So it just seems like a lot of the criminals would agree to it, and they go, oh, that's how he's getting away with it, because he's not actually running anything.
Right.
He's just taking a cut of all these other guys.
Keith's back in the waiting room, by the way. You can bring him back in. He had to switch laptops.
Yeah.
Get him back in here.
Gotcha.
That is indeed. Except that he did draw lines on certain things, didn't he? Right? Yeah. Like prostitution, human trafficking was something the Green Hornet never wanted a part of, and often tried to shut those particular things down.
I don't think he actually took a cut. I think he was always threatening.
Well, yeah.
Because they'd be like, oh, you're the Green Hornets here. What do you want? And then he'd be like, I want 30% of your operation. And they would just assume that's how he's running the city, is that he has a cut of all these other people's things, except he never really took a cut because he always shut down that criminal.
Right.
Or set up the criminal to be shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or kept some of the smaller ones just running under the watchful eye to make sure that they didn't get any bigger, right? Because he could go shut them down whenever he wanted, but it kept the reputation going. But yeah, the human trafficking was one thing that I believe that he drew a line on there. But going back to the Black Beauty, we have a couple of really great stories where Was it? Yeah, Kim, it was you and Kevin's with the Cato's Day Off, where the Black Beauty gets damaged, right? And it's all about him having to, work with the guy who could make missile launchers for the Black Beauty and all of that. There was some really good technical details in that. What inspired you guys to go, with that angle of the Black Beauty and Cato needing to get it repaired?
I mean, I'm a car nut. It was an excuse for me to flex. No, but also it's also, seeing behind the curtain and the production, because, somebody makes Batman's gadgets, somebody, makes the stuff. And so seeing the guy that they go to for all these custom parts, for all these special features, I thought would just be really interesting for readers.
And it was. It's a great story. It's cool when you kind of pull back the curtain. And you're not the only one. Timothy Zahn, actually, for his story, asked me a question about taillights, right? Like when we do our research for stories, we really leave no stone unturned for our details, because somebody out there has probably got that information, right? So Keith, to you, welcome back, by the way. For you, let's talk about the Hornet Sting for a moment, right?
Okay.
Like high frequency gun that can shatter metal and cut through concrete and all this kind of stuff. Like, is that even remotely possible? Like,
some of it is. I mean, it was in the 50s that they started experimenting with sonics and what sound waves can do. So it was even as late as 66, it was still a relatively new notion. They did it a bit on the 66 Batman as well. But the idea, that sound could do damage, was something that was already, in the mass consciousness at that point. It was exaggerated. Obviously, everything was, because it was television. I mean, you still see that on television. You see hackers who can do all sorts of things that you can't actually do with a smartphone,
right?
But they still do it because it's television, and that's what you do. The whole reason we follow these people is because they're slightly better than what we expect. And the Hornet thing is the same thing. But it is one thing about most of his gadgets is they were at least rooted in fairly decent scientific principles. I remember there was one episode that had a laser, which, unlike every other portrayal of a laser in the 20th century, which always did it as a zappy ray of light, actually did it as an invisible heat source, which is what a laser really would be.
Right.
And I thought that really impressed the hell out of me. It's like, okay, yes, they actually paid attention and are doing what a laser can do. This thing is the same thing. It's a slightly exaggerated version of basically a sonic weapon, but most of what it does is stuff that sonic stuff can do.
Right. So
by the way, before I want to mention when Kim said that she was a car nut, my wife next to me, the car nut, immediately gave a thumbs up. So I think she's reading Kevin and Kim's story now. She's the one who, when we watched My Cousin Vinny together, said, "Yep, that's all right." Everything she said.
Megan's in backstage, by the way. We could bring her forward. Here's my little Black Beauty. I got one. This one is a replica of the original Black Beauty model that came out in the 60s. They did this whole thing called Classic Plastic, where they made Johnny Lightning made the car based on the plastic model. And then this one, I think, was from Carl's Jr. When the Green Hornet movie came out a few years ago, which we will not talk about. So I had to get a couple of little Black Beauties to show off.
That was 14 years ago, by the way.
What's that?
That was 14 years ago. That was 2011.
I don't like you anymore. Anyway, so Speaking of indestructible, talented, and beautiful, Megan Mackey, everybody. Hi, Megan. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We were just talking a little bit about the Hornet's gadgets, the tech that went into it. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and what you write, and then what did getting invited to this anthology mean to you? That's what everybody else answered.
Well, my name is Megan Mackey. I write a lot of urban fantasy and cyberpunk and sci-fi fantasy in general. My current book right now is a cozy paranormal romance, but that's not relevant to Green Hornet. So I leaned a little more into my cyberpunk side.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely over the moon thrilled to be a part of this anthology. I was so excited. It was a good opportunity because I used to watch like the old TV shows at my grandma's house on Friday night, the Sci-Fi Fridays, and we would have it would be Batman, Green Hornet, then it would be like Blake 7, Doctor Who. It was like, so I got a lot of that old school. Hi, Kitty. Old school.
We at last have our Zoom chat cat. Which must
it's not a Zoom until somebody's pet shows up.
Right.
So.
How do they know? She's been avoiding me
because you're not paying attention.
And somebody in the chat just said hello to Megan, Danny Chamberlain from Mid South Con.
Nice.
And I also want to make an announcement too that we are $116 from unlocking the next stretch goal. So everybody in our watching right now, if anybody hasn't jumped in, I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. So if you haven't jumped in, please do so. And help us unlock that stretch goal.
Let's segue there for a moment, since you brought that up. Frank, what are some of the backer levels that we still have available? What are some of the cool items that we're offering up that we could tell people about that are watching? I know a lot of these guys offered up ebooks.
Yep.
I know that Megan and Keith have offered ebooks. We've got Keith's AMA. Is that still available?
Yep.
Ask me anything.
That one's still available.
And Keith, what do you plan to do during that AMA? Like, I know it's asked me anything, but of course,
I'll answer questions.
Yeah, but what type of
I have no idea, but still, I will answer every question that is posed to me. I like all the answers, but I'll answer them.
But I mean, what type of things could you tell, potential, maybe authors, writers,
writing questions, questions about craft, questions about my work. I've written 63 novels at this point, so people may have questions about them, or one of the 115 short stories I've written, or one of the 75 comic books I've written. And see how I got that plug in there?
Can I ask you a question? Right now, how much of your martial arts experience went into Kato?
Oh, quite a bit. In the story in particular, because there's a martial arts school that is part of the story, so I worked quite a bit of it into that. I deliberately did not have him be a student of any one particular style. That the school that the guy opened was specifically sort of a mishmash of different Asian martial arts. The character's reason was because he didn't want to be beholden to any particular style's politics, because martial arts is like any other group of people who do a thing together, is that politics gets involved and messes things up. And part of it was so that I didn't have to, pick any one thing, just for my own purposes. I could cherry pick which martial art I wanted to use.
Yeah. So if anybody picks up Keith's AMA, and I think there's 5 spots in there or whatever, but at least if one person picks it up, and Keith will do this for one person, he has no problem with one-on-one. That would put us over our goal. Same with Mike's. Mike has offered a manuscript critique. Tell us a little bit about that, Mike.
Yeah, so it won't be the entire manuscript. It'd be the first 50 pages, 12,500 words roughly. It'll be a developmental kind of edit. Help folks, give them feedback, tweak some words, find where the prose can be tightened, et cetera, et cetera.
Very good. And then of course Megan just got up. And
then
Keith,
yours too. Your
I'm off
as well.
Yes, I'm doing a short story critique, where up to a certain number of words, short story critique, same as Mike. I obviously have a little bit of street cred with the editing 10 different anthologies at this point. And so, I would love to help somebody out, help get their story publishable. I'm a professional tutor. I realize I've never introduced myself in any of these. I just assume people know me, but I should probably talk a little bit about me. So my name is David.
Hey, Dave, who are you?
Dave's not here. So, no, I'm a professional author and editor. I have edited 10 anthologies, including 3 weird westerns, 3 space westerns. Both Kim and Mike have been in the Kim weird, Mike spaced. That's not their stories. That's no.
I don't mind. It's a little weird.
But no, and I've done pulp. I've done this is my 3rd anthology for Moonstone. I have also written, much like everybody here, in multiple genres. I have a weird Western novel. I have a retro sci-fi noir novel called She Murdered Me with Science, which plays up a lot of the same technology that we've been talking about. I use a mazer is my great whatsits is a mazer gun, which again, all the technology is based on real technology, just pushed a little bit for the course of the story. So that's one of the things I love about the Green Hornet is that, retro future tech, as it were. And then Megan, you've got your novel up there as a reward level.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So that is my urban fantasy cyberpunk novel, The Finder of the Lucky Devil. It takes place in an alternate Chicago where magic and super tech are in competition with each other. We follow Rune Lavu. She has a magical talent for finding things. She meets a cybernetically altered corporate spy who wants her to help him find a wanted criminal called Anna Masterson. The problem is that she is Anna Masterson.
Okay. Well done. And then Keith, you have an urban fantasy police procedural up there, ebook.
I think it's I offered 3 of my novels basically. First book. The Dragon Precinct is a mix of epic fantasy and police procedure, actually. Kind of longer than Lord of the Rings. And that's the first book in a series. I've also got A Furnace Sealed, which is the first book in an urban fantasy series about a guy from the Bronx who hunts monsters for a living. I love writing about my hometown.
As one does.
Yeah. And people almost never, when they write stories that take place in New York, it's always Manhattan. Right. Maybe Brooklyn if they want to get edgy. The other outer boroughs are always ignored. That pisses me off as somebody who's lived in the Bronx for most of his life. So I have my protagonist being from the northernmost of the 5 boroughs. So so you can check out some of my series and see what I'm up to.
Very cool.
But I'm not writing it.
Kim, we don't get to... What's that?
Somebody just did put in, so we're only $96 away now.
Excellent. Woo! And we've got 20 minutes left, so let's keep those fingers crossed. Share, anybody who's watching, please share the link, bring them back in and so forth as we talk about this. Now, Kim, we don't get to talk about yours because it's sold. You and Kevin's Tuckerization. So you'll get to find out afterwards. And a Tuckerization, for those people who don't know, is when the author changes the name of a character in the story to a name that the person bids on, whether it's theirs or someone else's that they want to give tribute to. Done a couple of Tuckerizations in the past, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to name a character after that. So yeah, so congratulations there. So what else do we got going on, Frank? What are some other things that are left over? Frank?
So the other things are the $1,000 Van Williams signature comic.
Oh yeah, I've got that. Let me grab that while you're talking.
And then the other two are the Matt Wagner original piece of art and the Dennis Calero original piece of art.
So,
and that of course comes with the actual novel, hardcover novel, etc.
Right. Yeah, the all-ins come with everything, like literally everything. So, okay. So the first all-in we had, the winner got this one here. And you can kind of see the signatures over here. It does come with a letter of authenticity and all of that. And this one was written by Chuck Dixon. But it's great art there. Who did the art? Let me see here real quick. Todd Smith, penciler, David Mowry, inker, Ray Murtaugh, colorer, and Jason Palmer did the cover. And that went so quick that we acquired another one. And you can see here's the Van Williams signature on it. And not only that, this one was written by my good friend, and I don't know if you guys know him, Ron Foitier, who lives up in Fort Collins, Colorado. And so yesterday, I drove up to Fort Collins to add Ron's signature to this. So now this one, which is still available, gets 2 signatures, right?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. So if you've got $1,000 laying around to spare, and this is priceless, right? We know what we paid for the Van Williams, but you add the Ron Fortier signature. There's no way to estimate how many millions this is worth, really. So I know I'm overselling. I used to be in sales, but this is what you'll be getting if you back that all in. And if you've already pledged, you can bump up any of your particular pledges to help us reach that $900 some odd dollars we have left here in the next 18 minutes to reach that last goal. So yeah, so there's that. Very cool. So I showed you guys my little black beauties here. Do you guys, any of you, own any Green Hornet Kato swag that you want to brag about?
If I'd been home when we did this, you would actually see behind me, because I keep it on the bookcase that is behind my the chair of my desk. I have a Green Hornet and a Kato Funko Pop standing next to each other, standing guard over me while I write. So
this one?
Yeah, those guys, except I actually took them out of the package because I wanted them on the bookshelf.
Yeah, no.
And they can't breathe in there,
Yeah. The only reason I didn't take these out was this was the first expensive Funko Pop I bought. So so I didn't take these ones out.
Mine was a present from a friend. So
very cool.
I always try to get some kind of thing related to a license that I've done. The weirdest one I got was I did everyone remembers the show Andromeda with Kevin Sorbo back in the 2000s. Yeah. I did the first Andromeda novel. There were 6, and the problem is the Andromeda action figures were terrible. They were absolutely awful. So one of the things in that world is that there are genetically engineered humans called Nietzscheans. So my thing of that is I actually have a stuffed figure of Friedrich Nietzsche. So that's my Andromeda. Cool.
Yeah, Tyr was my favorite character on that show. That was
and there was a lot of Tyr in my book too.
Right. We mentioned Blake Seven earlier, and Tyr and I can't think of his name. Who's the Blake? Yeah, have a lot in common. As far as characters go. Anybody else? Any of you got some interesting Green Hornet swag, or even Batman? Anybody got some interesting Batman 66 Adam West stuff or signatures or anything?
No, I collect replica movie props, and unfortunately, trying to get Green Hornet stuff is very, very difficult. You essentially have to make it, and I'll probably do that at some point.
Yeah. Well, with 3D printing nowadays, it's much easier to do
yeah.
that. So, yeah. Well, very good. So 15 minutes left to go, guys. So that's, and I really, really wanted to get either Dennis or Matt on this today, but you know, artists gotta art, right? So they're both in the studio working. But let's talk a little bit about Dennis Calero for a moment. So our second stretch goal, which we did achieve yesterday, right? Or was it Friday, Frank? When did we hit that?
Yeah,
second
it was. It was a little while ago. Yeah,
okay.
It wasn't
So,
recent. So.
He's going to be doing interior illustrations for all of the stories. That's what the second stretch goal is. So just off the cuff here, and you can change your mind obviously later. Let's go around and think about what's the scene that you think would be the best for Dennis to illustrate. Kim?
First thing that comes to mind would be there's this bit where Kato is sneaking into a house and he's climbing up a tree and he has to leap from the tree branch to a second story window. And so having him like mid-leap would just be really cool. Very
cool. Megan?
I would really love to see like the Gallows them in the Gallows Hartley layer that I created, and then having like her costume rise out of the ground.
Okay.
On a mannequin.
So a little bit of background information. Megan created a kind of a predecessor a little bit to the Green Hornet, but not with all of the multiple identities. But this is a person who leaves the Green Hornet a mystery that he's going to have to solve. That would be a cool scene. Keith?
I think there's a scene. I mentioned there was a martial arts school. There's a scene where the guy who runs the martial arts school and Kato are kind of back to back facing off against a bunch of thugs who work for the Triad gangs. And I think that'd be good.
With the busted window right behind them, because they drive a truck through the front of the store, and then all of these thugs come piling out of the truck. That would be really cool. Mike, do you have anything in mind yet?
Yeah, the aftermath of after they've taken out, there's a van that pulls up and a bunch of the thugs of the Unseen Hand jump out. They deal with them, but the aftermath of that kind of Kato and the Green Hornet standing triumphant over, over the wreckage of what they've done.
Right. So, Frank, you've been in both of these podcasts, and you've been tagged in almost every single post we have done. But we don't really know much about you. And you're not just a Kickstarter manager, you're also a creative. And you've run Kickstarters for yourself and so forth. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, introduce yourself to these people streaming. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why this project appealed to you. Besides a paycheck.
Well, I've been a line producer in Hollywood for 18 years, and I just moved to Atlanta last year because nothing's being shot in LA anymore. Right. But I am an award-winning screenwriter, and novelist, and comic book writer. So, but mostly for my own stuff. I haven't done anything IP-wise. Like this is my latest fantasy novel, Tales of Ravenor. And then this is I have a 4-novel series for Destiny Aurora that was also made into a board game. It was made into an RPG. and it's an audio book on Audible and stuff like that. And then this is the comic version, graphic novel.
And you
And
just
then I
you
did
just
a vampire mob in the 50s as well, called Lords of LA.
okay. Ooh, I like that. I like that one a lot. And you had just done a social crowdfunding thing for the comic, didn't you?
No, it was for the board game, for the card
Oh,
game
it was
I did
for-
with Mark Spears.
Okay.
This is what I just did.
Okay.
So,
Rock on.
in fact, I just got back from Gamma trying to find a publisher for that. But yeah, we just did that. We did backer kit and Kickstarter on that. And I'm
Very
working
good.
on a new comic right now that I just got artwork in for, called Fairy Tales of Terror.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, cool. I'm using the fairy tale character. So yeah, that's everything I got going on. But I have some film stuff that I'm working on as well. Like I have a Samuel L. Jackson, Anthony Hopkins movie that needs about $2 million to finish up its funding, and I'm pretty close to closing that deal. So
rock on. That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on board with this. It was, I mean, really all of the back.
But like the rest of you, I became a fan of Green Hornet because of Batman. The same thing. I watched that too. I'm like, who are these guys? These guys are actually cooler than Batman is.
Right.
So
yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, because they had more of that dark, brooding sense, even in that two-parter, than Batman did. And I was reading Batman comics back in the day with I think it was Dick Giordano and stuff like that. That was drawing for him, and they did the long cape and stuff like that, which we really didn't get to see on the cartoon, the animated or the 66 version. So yeah.
Well, Adam West would have tripped.
I was all into that. What's that?
Adam West would have tripped over the cape if it was drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Burt Ward would have stepped on it.
Or that. Yeah.
It's funny. You mentioned like the climbing up a tree and jumping across. There's a couple of scenes within the various stories where Kato and or the Green Hornet have to climb up the side of a building. And I believe it was Timothy Zahn's story where that happened. And I'm like, you know what? It'd be really funny if one of the windows popped open and there's a celebrity sticks their head out. And it's like, Milton Berle, what are you doing in Detroit? Right? He did not go with the idea. Or I don't remember. Maybe that was yours, Keith. I don't remember who it was.
No.
But we had some fun with some stuff with yours too, though. Because there's lots of, when you talk about the Adam West Batman, there was a lot of camp in there, and there was a lot of fun stuff that we can look back on and see that it's not a serious show by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh my God, we are $39. $39.
Somebody out there, that's the some of the ebooks.
13 minutes. They're 13 minutes to get $39.
13 minutes to get $39. Wait, hold on.
Quick, Keith, take your shirt off.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll pull a muscle if I try that in this car.
Well, there, and one of the things we're going to do, something just popped up, some comment or something. Miller #1, Batman. That's all I see here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I can highlight that.
Yeah, there you go.
Get rid of it. There we go.
Okay, that's not
There's another one.
Oh my God,
yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't have the Henry Cavill thing where you can digitally remove your mustache, right?
But also, you couldn't see on a crappy old cathode ray tube CRT TV. You could not see the mustache. When I grew up, I had no idea that there was a mustache there. Now on high def, you can't miss it.
Right? Yeah.
But every time you barely see the damn thing. That's
so in the last.
Also, he was Cesar Dan Romero. He could do what he wanted.
Indeed. Okay.
And there's the link to the Kickstarter. I'll put that there.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, let's talk about future projects. What, Mike? What you got coming out next?
I'm working on a novella right now that is tentatively called Loggies, and it's about a covert unit fighting UFOs.
Nice. Keith, what do you got? You just had your Origins Kickstarter. Was successful, by the way.
Yeah, I did a Kickstarter for Dragon Precinct Origins, which is the short story collection
Which
of the backstories.
Backed and helped you get over a hump, by the way.
Yes. Appreciate that. It's the 8 short stories that'll tell the backstories of the various detective characters who are in the Precinct series. And I've got a new series that is debuting in October, which is called Supernatural Crimes Unit. It's going to be coming from the Weird Tales Presents imprint of Blackstone Publishing, and that's up for pre-order now. It's about a division of the NYPD that handles crimes involving magic and monsters.
You know,
I'm really looking forward to that coming out. I had a lot of fun with that one.
I would love for there to be a little chip that you could press in there that every time, like a scene break, it goes dong dong.
I'll work. I'll talk to Blackstone. We'll see what we can do.
That maybe in the audiobook or the ebook version. Megan, what do you got coming out?
So I'm also going to be doing my own solo Kickstarter here. I just got it set up. I'm starting to gather the people to me. It'll go live in June. I'm doing full-blown special edition omnibuses of my Lucky Devil series. So like the first book will have, or the first volume will have book 1 and 2 and a original short story in that one. The second one will have book 2, 3 and another novella story that I've written in the same world. And I'm going all out. I'm doing like foil covers. I'm doing, the sprayed edges, new art inside, the whole 9 yards. My goodness. Of course, that's when it's my turn.
Who is that? Is that David?
No.
Ooh, that's my husband's telling me dinner's ready. And it's like, thanks, hon. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. And like I said, it's an urban fantasy cyberpunk world. So magic has always existed, and super tech got developed in order to compete with magic, and it's starting to beat it out.
Very cool. Megan, Kim, what do you got going on?
I've got a short story coming out in the next volume of Thrill Ride magazine. Should be out pretty shortly, in the next week or so. Mm-hmm. And that story is the first installment in a series that I'll be doing for that magazine. It's all about the guy who is in charge of safeguarding and managing the SIS archives, their internal archive. And during this first installment, there's a break-in, and it's just him against 2 people who want to steal some state secrets. Tricky part is he is a wheelchair user going up against able-bodied folks. So I'm having a lot of fun writing this character, learning a lot. I'm really excited about this series.
Very cool. 2 minutes. How we doing, Frank?
Well, we got 8 minutes, 7 minutes now.
Oh,
we are $17 to go.
Oh, that's right. Because we didn't start right at the top, right? We started like
we started a little, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, we just passed it.
We did it. We did it.
21,000.
Yep. All right. Excellent. Congratulations, everybody. Awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I think that deserves a toast. I'm planning to toast.
I forgot my toaster.
If anybody has a drink at home, does not have to be alcoholic. And
still have like 5 hours.
A little of the bubbly here. I got for just this little Corbel. But I figured this has been a ride. This has been a ride. Frank, thank you for running all the stuff behind the scenes, keeping this Kickstarter moving forward, all of your hours posting on social media and so forth. So first, let's raise a toast to Frank.
Thank all, thank all of you guys for posting as well. I know you guys all posted. I really appreciate it.
And then, yes, to all of our authors, thank you so very much for all of your hard work. Every one of you posted. Keith was putting up story clips over the last week. You all answered any question that I had for you, sent in bios and photos, and took some fun ribbing with the rap sheets and stuff like that. So to all of everybody involved in this, from the late James A. Moore, Timothy Zahn, Kevin J. Anderson, Bill Willingham, these four here, Mary Fan, Matthew Baugh, who am I missing? Sumiko Salson. I caught myself. Who am I missing? Am I missing anybody else? I think that's it.
Dennis and Matt.
And then for our incredibly talented artists, Dennis and Matt, to them, let's do a toast for them.
Salud.
Next, Mr. Joe Gentile of Moonstone Books for acquiring the license to Green Hornet, agreeing to put this thing together. You know, he is a guy who's got like 4 different jobs in his life. He's got a family. He works at School of Rock. He runs 3 bookstores in the Chicago, comic book and game stores in the Chicago area, which Megan one of these days is going to pop over there, probably for a signing.
I got to get over there.
And then Moonstone Books. So this is a guy who gets up really early in the morning and pretty much doesn't go to bed until it's almost dawn again, right? Like, because I've contacted him at like 4 a.m. He was still up working. So Joe, this one's to you. Thank you. And then historically, to everybody who's ever been involved with the Green Hornet, from the creators, from Van and Bruce, from all of the talented people who have ever worked on the comics or stories of Green Hornet, Kevin Smith, James Beard or Jim Beard, or just Bobby Nash. There are a lot of talented authors out there and illustrators who have worked on Green Hornet in the past. Aaron Campbell did work. He's an artist friend of mine. He did work on the Green Hornet. Everybody who has kept this fire alive for 90 years. A toast to the Green Hornet and all those who support his mission. All right.
Also to the composers of the Flight of the Bumblebee.
All right, we're down to 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. So yes, the composer of Flight of the Bumblebee, which we wouldn't, that gets in your head and hard to lose.
Oh yeah.
I told Joe.
I was scrolling all over iTunes trying to find that specific arrangement that was used in the TV show.
Right.
Like I got 9 million versions of Flight of the Bumblebee, but I wanted that one. And I finally found an orchestra that did it in New York like 10 years ago.
Well, we also have to salute David here, who has kept the fire alive through trials and tribulations of this project from beginning to end. It begins and ends with you, David.
Thank you so David. That means a lot to me.
2 minutes.
This project went through a lot of challenges over the years since we first conceived of it. We rode high with the Kolchak anniversary, 50th anniversary, and coming into this one, this 90th anniversary, there was times I didn't think it was going to happen. We lost some authors, some things changed around staff and so forth. I didn't know that it was going to ever happen, but here we are. We're less than a minute away or so. Let's just call it a minute. And it's done. We funded, and it's now for our final toast. Everybody who supported the Kickstarter, all our backers, everybody, we love you.
369 people.
Yeah, how many?
369 people.
369 people believe in us, this Green Hornet anthology, and you will not be disappointed with the results. Hey, Todd. All right, everybody, here's to you. Salute. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for coming to the live stream. To a big round of applause to my wonderful authors, some who showed up en route. Keith, we really appreciate you. Mike, so happy about the new house there. I want to hear you play Flight of the Bumblebee on the piano next time I'm over. Kim, I'm sure we're going to be talking about Thrill Ride number 9 here very soon, tagging each other on that. And Megan, I will see you at Dragon Con, if not beforehand.
Yeah.
Always, and Keith, because always a good time, and we will definitely dine on this. Again, everybody, Mazel Tov. Thank you so much for your support. And with that, the mission goes on.
Amen.
30 seconds.
30
left.
seconds.
Oh, you could have just cut it right there. That was the perfect ending line. You didn't need to go 30 seconds. You could have just turned it off.
It's the Kickstarter. It says 30 seconds. What do you want from me?
Well, but who's watching the 30 seconds?
I want to. Okay, 10,
7,
9,
6,
8,
Wait, Frank, count.
7, 6, 5,
5,
4,
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yay!
And I love the Kickstarter. If you're watching the page when it hits 0, little confetti stuff comes out.
Yeah,
I just saw that.
Yeah, the confetti came out.
All right.
Pretty sweet.
All
right,
right,
everybody, be
perfect
safe.
timing.
Keith,
All right.
Keith, continue to drive safely. All of you be
Thanks,
safe
everybody.
out there. It's
Have a
uncertain
good
times.
All right, thanks again, everybody.
Be safe. All right. Love you all.
Good
Bye.
night.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. I got to hit the road.